I'd like to talk to you today about the mechanics of having a really good initial consultation with our office, and those are almost exclusively done by me, Morris Fischer. And I think that if people understand how to do a good consultation and prepare for it in advance, they're going to get a lot more out of it. Now, at our office, we have two kinds of consultations. We have the initial, no charge, traditional, usually about 15 to 20 minutes, free consultation in which we go through potentially what's going on and whether you have a claim. And then we have the hour-long, something is immediately due, there's a contract to review, there's a giant file already, litigation, there's something of a more serious nature that requires attorney advice right away. And those we charge a 1 hour fee. So these pointers that I'm going to give really apply to both kinds of consultations, and it's important that you follow these directives. The first thing, which is really important, is you have to bring the critical documents to your consultation. I do have clients, people who become clients, and they show up with manila envelopes of materials. Some even have binders, and that's really good. That's very organized. I like that, and that is helpful. Unfortunately, sometimes while the same person will have all of those materials, the most critical document, such as the letter of termination, the performance improvement plan, the email from the client to the boss or to human resources or to the EEO office that says, I am complaining of age discrimination. For some reason, that person doesn't bring it to the office. And that's just a killer. It's an absolute killer because it inhibits my ability to give advice to that person. There's something in law called the best evidence rule. And what the best evidence rule is about is the best evidence, if it's on a document, no other evidence can be offered other than the document. Okay, so let me give an example. Someone says, there was an email, I sent it, and it talked about age discrimination, and Judge, I don't have it, but let me testify at trial as to what that document said. Unless that document is legitimately missing, doesn't exist anymore, generally speaking, the court is not going to allow a party to testify about the document because the best evidence is what's on the document itself. And the court's going to say, Mr. Plaintiff, why didn't you make this document as one of your exhibits? You didn't. So that is really, really important that you actually take the time to make sure that you bring the really important documents that may affect your case. The second piece of advice I would say is to bring a charged iPhone or cell phone or something that if you forgot your document at home, which is really important, but you have it stored on your phone somewhere, in an email. It is absolutely not uncommon for someone to forget what may not be the most important document, but an important document. But if they bring a phone and that phone is charged, we will be able to find what that document is, and I'll be able to review it. Third point, show up on time. Really important. Don't just assume that we can drop whatever it is we do here the rest of the day and simply just push your consultation or move it forward to half an hour or an hour. Can't always do that. And especially if you're for the hour, remember there's no refunds. So if you miss it, we reschedule it once at no cost to you. That's a courtesy that we do. If you come late to the rescheduled appointment, we do have to charge you for that. So that's really important to show up on time. There is something that I like to call the timeline that everyone should be preparing, and we've talked about this in our previous podcast about maximizing your call to the office, you want to spend the time on your timeline. You really do. The timeline is really important, and the table of events is really important. This is exactly the kind of document you're going to have to prepare in the litigation. So really take the time, and it really helps me to look through exactly what happened to you. I like to call this, there's always this, the Bud Light Real Men of Genius commercials, which I've always loved through the years that they've been on, and where Budweiser always takes some really stupid person, but they turn him into a real man of genius, and it's everything from the foot-long hot dog inventor to the Worldwide Wrestling Federation costume designer to, there's a million of these. The one I like to call the Bud Light Real Man of Genius is the stack of papers at the consult guy. The stack of papers at the consult guy is the guy who shows up to the consult, and he's got a stack of papers. He's got like 50 or 75 papers about the case in his hands. And I ask him, hey, Mr. Stack of Papers guy, I actually call him by his real name, would you mind if I looked through your stack of papers that all have to deal with this case while you tell your story? Because as an employment lawyer, I see various patterns of cases, and I do have the ability to listen to you, comprehend what you're saying, and look through and review documents all at the same time. And that really helps me assess your case. And inevitably, some of these stacks of paper guys will pull out some of the papers to let me see them. Some will absolutely refuse. Some will say, no, Mr. Fischer, I'm not going to allow you to see any of my papers. And if you're doing that, then I don't understand why you would bring in these papers. It's really important for me to get to what happened here. And something that is hard to do, I get, is to tell your attorney bad news, or to tell your attorney things that you think will adversely affect the value of your case. Well, if you're not going to do that, then essentially you're wasting your time, and if you're paying for the hour-long consult, it's like not splitting aces or eights at a casino, at a blackjack table. Just mail in your check ahead of time. If you're not going to split aces or eights at a casino, what are you doing at a blackjack table? It's that simple. Finally, the last bit of advice I will give you is when the consult concludes and I give advice to the client, if you're not going to take the advice, essentially, if you've paid for the consultation, you've just set a match to it. It's really important to take the advice, because particularly for someone who's in a performance improvement plan or a hostile work environment, a lot of these things have to be done. A lot of these moves that I recommend have to be done right away. If you don't do them right away, you lose out in a very, very big way. Sometimes you want to complain right away about discrimination, and you want to do it in the right way. And unfortunately, some people, they just don't take the advice. It's kind of like my 8-year-old who, now's the time she has to go to bed, and we tell her, okay, it's 8 o'clock, you got to go to bed. And there's a little voice that goes off in my 8-year-old's head, creating excuses why she really doesn't have to go to bed right now. Things like, but mommy said I had to feed the bird in a half an hour, and I can't go to bed now. And people do this when they deal with lawyers, is I give them advice. You have to complain to your boss. You have to do it today. And then they don't follow the advice. And then they come back to me a week later and they say, what do I do now? And I say to them, it's a shame you really didn't listen to my advice. And for some people, there's a little light bulb that goes off in their head that says, Don't listen to your attorney. Don't listen to your attorney. Listen to yourself. Listen to yourself. And I don't know why people have that, why some people have that. I have had countless stories of people who took the advice and they ended up doing well in their case. And unfortunately, there is a small percentage of people who just, for whatever reason, can't take the advice. So I think if you do these things, you will not only make the most of your consultation, but you may be in a position to set up the rest of your case to have a successful conclusion.